The project, the body of work is called Place, hence the touring exhibition is called Place as well. It's essentially about the idea of location and what that can mean to anyone basically within Britain. I've concentrated it, narrowed it down to Britain because I had to find some parameters somewhere. Essentially, my work is quite diverse, quite eclectic in terms of the subject matter and how I make the work. But the thing that's core and central to all my work is that the location that the work is based on, there has to be a reason for me to be painting or sculpting or working there. I've got an absolute paranoia about being random, about being a tourist flitting to a place and taking a snap, a meaningless snap. So there always has to be a reason behind why I go somewhere to make work, which can be everything from my background, my family's background, stuff that interests me, fauna, flora, the environment, historical, cultural events, etc., etc. After a while, I've been thinking about this and thinking it's becoming a bit perverse, this sort of paranoia. And I decided that, okay, if it can be based on something that's important to a member of my family, why can't it be something that's important to a friend or a colleague or someone that I respect? I decided I wanted there to be an element of the person's justification of me going to that place. Therefore, it had to incorporate some writing. I suppose I could have made a movie or a film, but I decided to bring in writers. I've worked with loads of writers. I've been very fortunate to have a lot of writers, contemporary writers as friends and people who have written about my work and for me over the years. And then on top of that, I've got friends or people I know that I feel can write and should be published. And then there's people like Caroline, my wife, who's never written before in her life but had to be part of the project. So I chucked all these people together. I came up with 33 names. I wrote to them all expecting maybe a dozen would be interested. 32 wrote back, said, I want to be part of this project. I realised, God, I got some nightmare here. Caroline became a travel agent, working out an itinerary, how to get to these places. Furthest place was the Isle of Lewis in the Outer Hebrides. Nearest place was 2 miles down the road. So I said, right, you've got to tell me where to go. You've got to tell me if there's a when I should go and if there's any particular conditions like daylight, tidal situation, season, when a particular animal is around or flowering plant, whatever. They gave me those conditions. I started planning and started working, and then the pieces of work, I asked for 500 words from each person. They started coming in as well. So some of those I had before I went to the places, some of them I had after I went to the places. So I didn't always know the reason why this place was so important to the people. And in some ways I wanted to go to those places and have my normal response to them, but the place 9 times out of 10 was somewhere I didn't know. It was fresh. And so this was the idea, to sort of open new avenues for my work, find myself in places, whether it was a council estate on top of a mountain, on an island, in the middle of a city, whatever. And so I didn't always have a reason why they'd chosen it. And in fact, that collision of the pieces of writing and my images, my pieces of work, I made 3 pieces of work for each place, was quite interesting afterwards.
Who got to choose the image that was used? The person who'd done the writing or you?
All 3 pieces were used. The book has each person's 500 words with all 3 of my works. The exhibitions, this is the 3rd and final location of the tour. Each one has had a slightly different selection of works.
There's quite a few examples of Glastonbury here. Am I right in saying you were or are artist in residence there?
I am. I've been artist in residence there for 15 years now. I've obviously been going for a lot longer than that and painting there, but as a formal artist in residence, which involves all the delightful passes and access and
Well,
things.
I was going to say you had no problem getting a ticket.
No, I never do, and that's we, as in my family, are treated very well in that respect. And Michael, and in fact the whole Levis family, are now very close friends of ours, and we see each other a lot outside the festival as well as at the festival.
Now, with him, did you have his words first, or did you go and get your own impressions and then see what he'd written afterwards?
A little bit of both, because with Michael, he was the only one really who refused to write, and in the end he asked me to do an interview with him, which I wrote down and then played back to him, read back to him, and checked he was happy with it. But because I know Michael so well and I know the festival so well, I know the history of it, and I knew really how he was going to justify it. And the only thing was, he told me this one spot on the edge of the festival where he wanted me to draw and paint from.
Why was that special?
It's a place he used to play as a little boy, I think, on top of the downs. But it also is a fantastic vista of the whole festival site.
You're really into the environment. How do you feel about such a major incursion of humanity and the effect that they have on that particular environment?
Well, in some ways, it's what you've got to bear in mind is that the festival is the same size as a small city or a large town. So essentially, you're taking an urban population, largely urban population that you'd find anywhere in Britain, whether it's, for instance, Nottingham, it's a similar size from what I gather, and you're plonking it in the middle of the countryside. So you have all the same things that happen in a city of that size, like over that long weekend you'll have the same number of deaths and the same number of births that would happen in a city that size, but they're happening in the Vale of Avalon. You have the same amount of rubbish produced as you would in a city. You have the same amount of water consumed and food consumed. But of course, because it's transported to the country, the bare facts of it are right in your face. Actually, the rubbish is there for you to see. How is it got rid of? How is it recycled? What's done with it? The amount of food that has to be supplied, the amount of power that has to be supplied. It's like it's isolated, and you can actually see both the effect on the environment and what we consume and what we produce. And it's fascinating from that point of view. Luckily, Glastonbury Festival is a very right-on organisation. They're very forward thinking, and they're very conscious of the environment.
They clean up afterwards.
They do, but they don't just clean up and dump it in a landfill, which is, I know for a fact, is what most festivals do. They consciously try and recycle as much of it. They try to use it in upcycling. They try to reuse it. They're really clever, and that the art of being clever in that way has been polished over the years, and it's getting better all the time.
Kurt, I mustn't keep you too long because you've got a talk to give to the youngsters here at KES. If there is a message from an artist like you to young people who are interested in art, interested in expressing themselves, what would it be?
I think it would be to somehow find their own path, their own interests, what fascinates them. Don't be too influenced or swayed by current isms and modes and fashions, because it all changes. Don't be too paranoid about what you want to paint or how you want to paint, or in any other medium for that matter. Don't be too worried about whether that is trendy or a la mode. Do what you feel excites you, and time will work out in the end, and you will make great art.
Kurt, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.